Our final section of notes on homeostasis is on homeostasis and systems of the body. Remember that our one learning target is to plan and conduct an investigation to provide evidence that feedback mechanisms maintain homeostasis. And so that's the lab we're going to be working on this week. And so we just want to make sure you understand some of the different systems of the body. We're not going to go into this in real depth, but a lot of the scenarios that we've covered, as well as your lab, really do tie in some of those different systems of the body and the role that they play in maintaining homeostasis. And so two of the ones that we've mentioned a few times in some of our examples are the respiratory and circulatory systems. Now the respiratory and circulatory systems, respiratory is your breathing, bringing in those gases, exchanging of those gases, bringing in oxygen, getting rid of carbon dioxide. And the circulatory system is, of course, moving that blood around and with all the nutrients and gases that the blood is carrying. So the job of the circulatory system is to, if I can get my pen working here, is to help transport blood and materials throughout the body. That includes nutrients and oxygen, and it carries away waste products from the cells. That includes your carbon dioxide, okay? Your respiratory system is all about gas exchange, picking up oxygen from the lungs and delivering carbon dioxide to the lungs. So when we inhale and exhale, we want to bring in the oxygen and get rid of that carbon dioxide. So both of these systems work really closely together to help maintain homeostasis, especially when it involves your carbon dioxide and oxygen levels. Just quickly, some of the parts of the respiratory system. That includes your trachea, which is your windpipe, where you're bringing in gases or getting rid of them. That branches into your bronchi that go into your lungs, and the bronchioles are just even smaller branches. And at the very tips of those bronchioles are what we call alveoli. These are tiny air sacs covered with capillaries, and they are the sites of gas exchange. So these are what are really, really important. And these are ones that can sometimes be damaged with people who have emphysema, or if they have been smokers for a long time. It can kind of destroy their alveoli. Well, if those get destroyed, that means you're not going to be able to exchange your gases as well, so you might not be able to breathe as well. We also include your diaphragm, which is the muscle at the base of your rib cage, and that's what contracts and relaxes to help you aid in breathing. When the diaphragm pushes up here, it means it pushes up on your lungs and causes you to expel your CO2. When it moves down, then it's going to help your lungs expand and fill up with oxygen, and that's helping you when you inhale, when you're breathing. The parts of the circulatory system, the main parts are the blood, the heart, and the blood vessels. And so those all work in moving your blood throughout your body and carrying with it anything like the gases or the wastes or the nutrients that you might need. As far as your blood vessels, your arteries carry blood away from the heart, your veins toward the heart, and of course your capillaries are your tiniest vessels, and this is where that exchange of gases and nutrients occurs with your cells. Now, when we talk about gas exchange, three basic principles. First of all, your oxygen and your carbon dioxide are carried by your blood, and how they actually move into and out of your system is by the process of diffusion. So we can't forget that process that we talked about a couple of units ago. There's a higher concentration of oxygen in your lungs when you inhale, okay? And there's a lower concentration in your capillaries that surround your lungs, those blood vessels that surround your lungs. So by diffusion, when you inhale, oxygen will move from high concentration to lower concentration in your blood, therefore passing into your bloodstream when you inhale. Okay? Likewise, there's a higher concentration of carbon dioxide in your capillaries, that waste product from cellular respiration that now has built up in your blood vessels. there's a higher concentration flowing in your blood and a lower concentration in your lungs. So now your CO2 is going to diffuse out of your blood vessels and into those alveoli, those little air sacs in your lungs, and you're going to exhale that, okay? So that's how gas exchange occurs. And we can bring in oxygen that we need for cellular respiration to make energy, and we can exhale that CO2, which is a waste product of cellular respiration, and get that out of our blood vessels. So very important that we don't forget that diffusion is playing a role here. Your endocrine system, those are the parts that, again, produce our hormones. They secrete hormones into the bloodstream. So anytime a hormone is involved, we know that the endocrine system is also playing a role in the process of homeostasis. A hormone is a chemical messenger that targets a specific group of cells, and it causes the cells to do some activity or stop doing some sort of activity. Okay? So each hormone acts only on a certain type of tissue called the target tissue. And so that's why the endocrine system often acts as a communication system, because it's relaying that message to a particular target organ. These are some of your major endocrine glands that we've already talked about with some of our examples: the pituitary gland, thyroid, parathyroid, the adrenal glands, which are located right on here on your kidneys, your pancreas that secretes insulin and glucagon to control your levels of glucose in your blood. Your testes and ovaries will secrete those reproductive hormones that you need. And then finally, our nervous system. Our nervous system is also important. It is one of the main communication systems we have as part of our feedback loops. Sensory receptors often will detect changes in the external and internal environment. So a lot of times the sensor part of a feedback loop are some of these sensory nerves. And a neuron is just another name for a nerve cell, and they are the basic parts of the nervous system. So here's an example right here of one neuron and the different parts of it. Now, there can be 3 different types of neurons. These are the main ones here. Sensory neurons, or nerve cells, they carry information from the sensory receptors to the central nervous system, or the brain, okay, and spinal cord. And so a lot of times those sensory receptors are going to pick up, those nerve cells are going to pick up a change in the environment and send that message to the control center, which is the brain. Interneurons just kind of relay these messages in between various parts of the body, but the motor neuron is going to convey the information from the central nervous system to the glands or muscles. And so that's why a lot of times the nervous system is a communication system, because it's relaying a message via these nerve impulses, and it's going to tell a muscle or maybe a gland to either secrete a hormone, or it's going to cause a muscle cell to contract, maybe causing you to breathe faster or slower. But nerve cells are a big part of maintaining homeostasis. So your practice here is to select 2 of the following systems of the body and explain their role in regulation of homeostasis in the body using a specific example. Well, we've done different examples already with different feedback mechanisms, but one of the ones we covered in your notes earlier even were showing you how the circulatory system and respiratory system are connected, and that's with controlling gas exchange. Okay, so controlling those CO2 levels and oxygen levels, especially like during exercise. Remember, if you start exercising heavily, you're going to get a buildup of CO2 in your bloodstream. Sensors in your blood will detect that you have high levels of CO2 because your blood pH will drop. It'll become more acidic. That sends a message to your brain, which control center, which compares it to your normal set points. That will send a message via the nervous system so it kind of ties in your nervous system too, to cause you to start, it sends a message to the muscles of your diaphragm and your rib cage to cause you to start breathing faster, to kind of get rid of, expel more of that carbon dioxide, bringing more oxygen until you're back down to a more balanced level of homeostasis in your body. So really in this case, all three of these were involved. Your circulatory system is transporting the gases around. Your respiratory system is involved in bringing in those gas exchanges. Your nervous system is sending the impulses to your ribs and diaphragm to start breathing more heavily. So you notice that usually it's not just one system of the body involved. There's usually multiple ones involved in maintaining homeostasis.